Hey folks, so where we last left off, we had just gone through our web page and we had tried to grab that span 6 component, which again was the sort of smallest component of the page we could find, the smallest uniquely identifiable component of the page we could find that contained the all of the information that we ultimately want to be able to scrape. So I'm going to run a test on that in just a moment, just using a print statement here. So I'm just, this is sort of hokey, but I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to end up doing a visual scan in Terminal to see if it seems to match what I want. I could obviously do this by like writing it out to a separate file, for example, a lot of different ways that we could do it. But this is just a way to do a quick test and see that we're getting what we want. Now, one thing I want to note here is that, so again, things like where does the find command come from? This is all going to come from the documentation of that BeautifulSoup library, right? So this is where we have to go on the web, look at the documentation, and see what methods are available and how we should expect them to behave. I just want to make a note here that class, if you notice that class here is followed by an underscore. The reason for that is class is a so-called reserved word in most programming languages, because when we talk about classes, we mean sort of categories. They're almost like subprograms. So like a number is a class, a Boolean is a class, an object is a class, etc. And you can make your own classes. Because of that, we can't just ask it to find something where class equals span 6, because class is going to, using the word class in that way is just going to confuse the Python. It's going to be expecting something else because class is also a term in Python. So that's why we see this with underscore. It's just a little note there. But let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. And hopefully if things go okay. Okay, so what we start to see here is obviously this is not great for reading on Terminal, but what this is starting to show us is, that we are getting, basically the stuff that we expected, right? So here's div class span 6 and all of this other stuff. Importantly, as I sort of scroll through this, I see, here are all of the elements that I care about, right? And specifically, I'm looking for this bit, right? I want the thing where the link goes to an XLSX file, because that's going to be the structured file. It's going to be easier for me to read. PDF, of course, I could deal with if I absolutely had to, but preferably I'll take structured data if I can get it. So from here, what I need to do now is be able to narrow in even further. So I'm still at the top level here. I want to be able to get to this content, right? And at first, what I can see is that each one, right, and I can see this on the web page as well, I can see that each section has both an identical looking PDF and Excel link. Obviously, we know that the link for the Excel is going to have in its href property, and its href attribute is going to end with a .xlsx. Spoiler alert, we're going to use a regular expression to identify those extensions to do our sort of final step of filtering. But before that, we need to get to a point where we can where we can actually just get to these. Now, how do we do that? Well, we've gotten as far as getting just this chunk of content that has all the links we need in it. Now what we want to do is look at the structure of how those links are contained. So again, we're looking for, we want to find a way that we can uniquely specify the structure that contains the information that we're looking for. In this case, if I go to here, right, and I say, I'm going to go to inspect. This is just going to jump me to the relevant part. What I see is that I have this UL, which is for an unordered list. That's what generates the bullets in HTML. And I see that every subset of links is a list item. Within that, in every list item, there is a paragraph tag, and then there is an anchor tag, right, which is a link tag. And so what I can say is, and by contrast, right, so that's the content there. By contrast, like the label Bronx is H2, right? So, and this is just an anchor tag, but without, not in a list item and not in a P tag. This is an H3, right? So when I start to look at what distinguishes the location of the links that I care about from other parts of this content, what I see is that each of them is inside a list item, then a p tag, and then an anchor tag. So I can use BeautifulSoup and say, hey, listen, get everything in this chunk of data that I've already sort of narrowed down, right? That I've narrowed down using this find span 6 element. And I'm going to say, give me everything in here that matches, that has all of these tags. So in this case, I'm going to say select. Again, that's coming out of the library. And I can actually string these together. I don't have to do them in sequence. So you can see a situation where it's like, oh, I have to get the list item and then I have to get the PT. I can actually do this just like that, right? So this, what I'm saying is select every item in this subset of the HTML data that I've asked you to narrow in on that is a list item and then a p tag and then an anchor tag, right? And again, I'm just going to have to do a test here and say, right, this is, so now data items select returns a list. Because it's a list, I can use my for in, I can create a for loop. And I'm just going to say print, and it's going to be a link, and I want the contents of the href tag, right? So again, the href tag is going to be the actual link contents here, right? What I'm expecting, what I'm hoping to get with this, right, is I'm hoping to get every link, so the PDF and the Excel links, but just the links. And if I'm pulling that out successfully, then hopefully you can see it's a hop, skip, and a jump to getting just the Excel files, Excel URLs. And then probably what I'll do is just write those to a file, and then I'll write I would write a separate script that would then go through that list and say, you know, download this and write a local copy, right? So you can see how we're building up a workflow here that might consist of 2 or even 3 scripts. In actuality, I would probably, if I were using this, I would probably, well, I would probably only need to do this piece once, assuming that the URLs don't change, right? Once I have the initial list, I won't need to change. Once I have the initial list of target URLs, I won't need to change it because it should be consistent week to week. But just to make sure that we're sort of being complete in the process, I wanted to go through all this. So again, if things are working as we hope, then I should just get a list of the href tags here. Oops. Oh, and once again, typo. There we go. And this is exactly what I was hoping for. So what I see is that I'm getting both the PDF and the XLSX links. Obviously, I just want the XLSX links. Hopefully this will feel like old hat now. Of course, if I need to match just a file extension, that's going to be where my regular expressions come in handy. And I'm going to go ahead and say, give me anything that ends in .xlsx, right? And of course, I'm using that backslash to escape the dot because dot also means any characters. So any file name, anything in it, as long as it ends in .xlsx. And then here, I can say, I'm going to use my rematch, right? And again, the thing that I want to match to is this, right? And I can go ahead, and so now I'm going to just leave that print statement and make sure that I'm getting only the XLSX links that I am hoping to get. So I made another typo, which is entirely possible. Whoops. Okay, so something's wrong here. Yep, there's my typo. See, folks, it's always a typo. Because I know that they're in there somewhere. There we go. Okay, took a second. Again, the reason why it's taking a moment is because I'm actually still downloading this every single time. What I should probably do here, since I don't need to be rewriting a copy of this every single time, and I already have a copy of the crime stats, is I can just, I think I can just use, let's see, is it Shift L? No, clearly not. I'll have to look up that shortcut, but there's a shortcut where I can comment out this whole thing. Toggle comment anywhere? All right, just a moment. Sorry, if you want to comment out a whole chunk of code, you can just hold down the command key and hit / and it will just toggle between commenting and uncommenting. So that's handy if you want to comment out a chunk of code. And by doing this, you'll see, I think, that this runs much faster. It's instantaneous because it isn't actually reaching out to the internet, downloading a copy of that page, writing it to the file, then opening that file, et cetera, et cetera. I already have a local copy. I don't need to do it again. Finally, I want to write this to a file. And again, this is something we've done many times before now. So I will just do it quickly here and otherwise leave it as an exercise for the reader, as they say. So I'm just going to open links.csv, writable. And in this case, I'm being extremely lazy about this. I am actually just going to say links file dot write, and I'm going to write each link plus a new line character. Okay, and what that means is it's just going to do a carriage return. So I'm just going to get a single cell list, if you will. Again, being kind of lazy about it. And here, this actually, so we have an open function here, but we don't actually close this using close. Instead, I'm just going to close my links file at the end. Here we are. And now, no news is good news. And if I open up statlinks.csv, here we go, right? So now the part that we're not going to do right now, that we could do obviously, is given this list, what would I do with it? Probably what I would do is write another scraper in which I would download, I would basically I would create a base URL, right? A variable that held the base URL, and use it to literally just download all of these Excel files. And then again, I could create another Python script that opened up those Excel files and read them and parsed them and did whatever calculations I needed to do on them. You can see how by creating a series of small scripts, I can really accomplish, I can automate whatever kinds of relevant tasks I need to, but it's really just recombining things that we've already done, right? Downloading files, making local copies, opening up, Excels or CSVs, going through them, maybe doing some tests, maybe doing some calculations, etc., and then writing an output file based on those tests and calculations. Everything comes down to links and conditional statements, for loops and conditional statements, and that's how we build out our toolkit or our workflow for parsing data almost no matter what format it comes in. So that is all for this week. If you have any questions, of course, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in class in a few days.